Good evening. Thanks very much for joining us on India Business Hour. I'm Shireen Bhan. The big stories that we're tracking for you this evening. India gets ready to usher in a new GST regime from the 22nd of September. From daily essentials to cars and bikes, tax rates will be lowered for several items as the government hopes to boost consumption. The government estimates a revenue impact of 48,000 crores. Auto stocks hit the highest level in nearly a year as the GST cut on small cars and bikes lifts sentiment. The effective tax rate on SUVs and luxury cars will also drop to 40% as the compensation cess is ending. But two-wheeler makers fear higher taxes on bikes above 350cc, which could adversely impact the segment. From soaps to toothpaste, majority of personal care and home care items will see the GST dropping to 5%. Textile and apparel industry will also see benefits as key inputs and finished products now fall under the 5% tax slab. In a bid to boost infra and construction, GST on cement lowered from 28 to 18%. Individual health and life insurance now exempt from GST, but industry fears costs will rise without benefits under the inverted duty structure and input tax credit. The Sensex and the Nifty give up early gains, ending flat after profit booking in late trade. Mid-cap see sharper cuts. Rupee weakens marginally against the dollar. Commerce Minister Piyush Goyal says the India-US relationship is the most consequential, adds that India is a patient country and believes in dialogue and diplomacy amidst the tariff standoff with the Trump administration. The Commerce Minister says India will make every effort to come to a greater understanding, but within the framework of international trading laws. Some respite from the downpour for North India. Relief and restoration process picks up. The Punjab government has extended the closure of schools, colleges till the end of the week. Water levels in the Yamuna remain above the danger mark.
This reform is not just on rationalizing rates. It's also on structural reforms. It's also on ease of living. Rate rationalization, of course. We've reduced the slabs. There shall be only 2 slabs. And we are addressing also the issues of compensation cess. Ease of living, simplifying registration, return filing and refunds. Levied on common man's daily use items have gone through a rigorous looking into. And in most cases, the rates have come down drastically.
Well, the union government and states have undertaken a massive overhaul of the country's goods and services tax regime in a bid to boost consumption ahead of the festive season. Prime Minister Modi had announced the dawn of the next generation GST reforms from the ramparts of the Red Fort in his Independence Day speech. So here's exactly what's happened. The GST Council, that's India's apex decision-making body on GST, has decided to scrap the 12% and 28% slabs. Instead, we now have 5, 18 and 40%. That's the new slab for sin and super luxury goods. This is the rate rationalization exercise that has now put in place a 2-slab structure, making it easier for compliance and also giving consumption a boost. Now, moving on to what the Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman had to say. She is, of course, the chair of the GST Council. She says the cut was a unanimous one and there was no disagreement among states. There were concerns about revenue protection, but there was no additional levy that was agreed upon. Now, nearly 99% of the goods which were previously in the 12% tax slab have moved down to the 5% slab. So that is a big reduction coming in there. The new rates will apply from the 22nd of September. These products will include the likes of daily essentials, toothpaste, toilet soaps, footwear below 2,500 rupees, fertilizers, tractors, electric vehicles, finished textile products. So that is now what you will find in the 5% slab. Let's now focus on the 18% GST slab. Around 90% of the products that were earlier in the 28% slab have now been moved to 18%. This includes cement, that's the big one, small cars, another big one, televisions, bikes below 350cc, air conditioners, refrigerators, all of those items now move to 18% from 28%. Also, relief coming in for individual health and life insurance premia, which were earlier in the 18% slab, now in the exempt category. But there is a concern that costs could see an impact if benefits under the inverted duty structure and input tax credit are not followed through. The centre is bracing for an impact of close to 48,000 crore rupees, but very, very clear that they expect revenue buoyancy to more than make up for what could potentially be the revenue hit on account of the rate rationalization exercise. In fact, speaking at an event in New Delhi, Prime Minister Modi has called the GST reforms a double dose of growth and support for India.
8 वर्ष पहले जब जीएसटी लागू हुआ तो कई दशकों का सपना साकार हुआ था। तो ये चर्चा कोई मोदी प्रधानमंत्री बना उसके बाद नहीं हुई, उसके पहले भी हो रही थी। काम नहीं होता था, चर्चा होती थी। ये आजाद भारत के सबसे बड़े आर्थिक सुधारों में से एक था। तब देश को अनेकों तरह के टैक्स के जाल से मुक्ति दिलाने का एक बहुत बड़ा काम हुआ था। अब 21वीं सदी में आगे बढ़ते भारत में जीएसटी में भी नेक्स्ट जनरेशन रिफॉर्म की आवश्यकता थी और उसको किया गया है। मीडिया के कुछ साथी इसको जीएसटी 2.0 के रूप में कह रहे हैं, लेकिन असल में ये देश के लिए सपोर्ट और ग्रोथ की डबल डोज है। डबल डोज यानी एक तरफ देश के सामान्य परिवार की बचत और दूसरी तरफ देश की अर्थव्यवस्था को नई मजबूती।
Well, that is the Prime Minister on the GST regime. Let's now focus on the sectors one by one. Let's start with FMCG because that has seen the big change. A wide variety of items from hair oils, toothpaste, butter, paneer, namkeen and even instant noodles. All of that now in the 5% bracket. They become cheaper as they move to a lower slab. Mangalam is standing by to decode what the GST bonanza means for the FMCG sector. Mangalam.
It's been very clear from the finance minister's statement that they want to boost consumption. On the one hand, you had the income tax cuts that came by in the budget, thereafter the RBI cutting interest rates as well, and now the GST rationalization specifically on daily use items like soaps, shampoos, hair oil, toothpaste, toothbrushes, biscuits, etc. All of them down to about 5%. And for a lot of the dairy products, the 5% slab has been moved lower to about 0%, and a lot of the paneer products, etc., moving down from 12% to 5% as well is a big positive, which is why we saw that big gain come by in the likes of HUL, Colgate, Britannia and the likes. The only stock which ended lower was Varun Beverages, and that too because it was expected that something like an aerated beverages, etc., would go all the way up to 40% from 28%. Does that mean your cola gets expensive? No. It only means that earlier it was 28% plus cess, but now that cess has been subsumed, all you have to pay is 40%, which is pretty much in line with what these companies were paying already. Bikaji, for instance, had namkeen, bhujiyas, etc. Nearly 90% of their overall portfolio now stands at 5% taxes, and they said they would see increased volumes to the tune of 3 to 5% on account of this rate rationalization. Does this also mean that you have to scamper for change every time a 5 rupee product has become 4 rupees 50 paise? No, that's not the case. India is a price point market. What these companies will go ahead and do is keep the price points at 5, 10, 15, 25 itself, but give you a little more bang for your buck. So you will get more grammage for the products that you buy at the price points that you buy, which also means it is volume positive for a lot of these FMCG companies. So all things said and done, this is a massive boost to all things consumption, and that's something that we've seen in the stock prices as well. Yes, there was some bit of profit taking today, but that's ahead of all the up move that we've seen after the Prime Minister's speech on the 15th of August. So it is 2 thumbs up to consumption, and the stock market reacted accordingly.
This is a very bold step that the government has taken. It's the Honorable Prime Minister announced it on the Independence Day, and I think it's going to have multi-dimensional impact, because it's not just about rate reduction. It is also about simplification. It is also about ease of doing business. So the changes are multi-dimensional, and impacts are going to be even more profound. I think it's certainly going to make things cheaper for the common man. So it will fuel consumption. It will lead to a lot more formalization of the economy.
It's indeed fantastic news, because this will bring in a lot of benefits both to the producers as well as consumers. Now, half the products that we do, or half of our turnover, comes with 0% GST, and the balance half with just 5% GST. So we as an organization, cooperative, believe in passing on the largest share of the consumer's rupee to the producer, which is already about 80-82%. And now with reduction in GST, we will definitely increase our share of the consumer's revenue to the producer in a much larger way. So benefits both producers and consumers, and we are really thankful to the Prime Minister and the Finance Minister for this great initiative.
Well, from FMCG, let's switch to auto. Auto stocks in top gear today, hitting the highest levels in nearly a year as the GST cut on small cars and bikes lifted sentiment. The effective tax rate, even on SUVs and luxury cars, will in fact drop to 40% as the compensation cess ends. Two-wheelers with the engine capacity below 350cc will become cheaper as they move to 18%. However, two-wheeler makers fear that higher taxes on bigger bikes, that's 350cc and above, will impact that segment. But across the board, a rally on stocks like Maruti, Mahindra hitting a record high on the back of the GST cuts coming in today.
Ushers in a new era of simplification and possibly a new era of ease of doing business as well. It will have a very significant impact on consumption. And this is something that should in some ways create that momentum that we were looking for in the economy. A lot of the fundamentals have been in place, but I think this is a very significant move that will create that momentum and propel India to an 8 to 10% growth rate overall. So that is the reason why we feel it is a very important milestone for our economy and sets it up in the right way.
You know, if I have to summarize what's happened for the two-wheeler industry, I would say it's a tactical hit. This GST reduction is a tactical hit, but it's a strategic miss. You know, it's a tactical hit because, you know, obviously a big fillip for, let's say, almost 98% of the domestic industry with this significant reduction in GST. But at the same time, you know, the 350cc plus motorcycles, where Royal Enfield and Bajaj are the biggest players. You know, this is on the one hand just 1% of industry, perhaps about 4% by value. So, you know, both Siddharth and I had appealed to those concerned, you know, that this is just 2% of the industry and let's have a uniform rate.
For auto sector specifically, we are seeing across the categories there has been a significant reduction in GST. You know, the 28 to 31% bracket rates have come down to 18%, and then 43% to 50% brackets have been brought down to 40%. So I think not only the reduction, but also the timing is perfect, just ahead of the festive period. And therefore, I believe that this will have a significant impact on the demand, which will be extremely favorable. So overall, I think, you know, it's a significant move, and this will have a significant demand creation and generation for the auto industry in all the categories.
Certainly, the small car segment is the big beneficiary. It will, I assume, from the 22nd of September onwards, our expectation is that we will start getting into about 10% growth a year instead of the current stagnation and decline.
Well, the auto sector in top gear there. Now, the GST Council has decided to exempt individual life and health insurance policies from the goods and services tax starting the 22nd of September. This was the much sought after demand. Now, premiums attracted GST at various rates, with 18% being the highest. Brokerages believe that policies could get cheaper by up to 18% if insurers decide to pass on the full benefit to consumers. Take a look.
I think this is one of the biggest reforms we have seen from the government since the 2017 introduction of GST. And we must commend the government for doing that. It is a big bang positive movement for the economy on multiple fronts. So if you think about it, big boost to households and rural income. I think it's between 1 lakh and 2 lakh crore, the benefit that should come out of this. Big stimulus for manufacturing and infrastructure. As we know, the cut in cement will be a big cut in construction costs, infrastructure costs, further accelerate investment and job creation.
So it is not like one is making too much money or anything of that sort of profit. Terms like profiteering, etc. do not. Which insurance company is making crazy profits? And which distributor is making crazy profits, right? As a percentage of premium. If the benefit is 18% and the cost is 5% or 10%, a benefit is going to the consumer, is it not? Right? Whatever the industry can afford, it will take.
If I have to give you just a guess, overall estimate in terms of how much is the overall cost, all input cost, assuming if it's 1/3 is reinsurance cost and the 2/3 is other cost. That's how we have divided this as of now. 2/3 is other cost, whereby we do not get the input credit today.
Well, insurance sector there reacting onto the big Network 18 exclusive. Commerce Minister Piyush Goyal says the India-US relationship is the most consequential relationship. Goyal also said that India is a patient country and believes in dialogue and diplomacy amidst the tariff standoff with the Trump administration. Further, the Commerce Minister said that India will make every effort to come to a greater understanding within the framework of international trading laws. The Commerce Minister also spoke about the GST regime and said he believes that revenue buoyancy will kick in and consumption will get a massive fillip and a boost. And of course, he also addressed the issue of India's reset of its ties with China. Here's the big CNBC-TV18 newsmaker.
Till about July 6th or 7th, things seem to be going fine with in our negotiations with the US. Then in a matter of weeks, we had a tariff of 25%, then another 25% on top of that. What went wrong in these few weeks?
Well, I think the US-India relationship is one of the most consequential relationships on the globe today. We are two very large democracies. We believe in the rule of law. We are allies and friends for long. We have had certain blips, like we had the sanctions post the nuclear tests in 1998.
Yes.
I look at this only as one more situation which will pass as there's a deeper understanding of the reality of the situation. And I'm very confident this relationship will only strengthen in the years to come.
And how soon do you expect things to resolve?
It could happen soon enough. It may take some time. Irrespective, we will continue to be friends. We will continue to be engaged with the United States. And I'm sure we will continue to have greater economic relationships, defense relationships, greater interest in a safe, fair and secure Indo-Pacific. In some sense, it's a very multi-dimensional relationship where we contribute to each other's economies in different dimensions and will continue to do so.
It's comforting to hear these words from you. And we also picked up that you said somewhere that things could happen as soon as November. Is that a correct?
Well, if you recall, when Prime Minister Modi and Honorable President Donald Trump met in February, they had tasked the two teams to conclude the first tranche of a bilateral trade agreement by fall of 25, which is about November 2025. And I'm sure we will continue to be engaged to try and find solutions to reach that outcome. If at all it's give and take a few days, a few weeks, a few months, in a nation's history, such small periods will not define long-term objectives and goals.
I think what surprised and even shocked some people was the erratic and incendiary language that was used by some of the officials of the Trump administration, calling it Modi's war or, a laundromat of Kremlin. I mean, how do you react to this? I mean, are conciliatory noises coming from the other side now?
I think there could be either some misunderstandings or some personal opinions that may be reflected in that. I do not think that deters the US and India from continuing to maintain our strategic alliance and partnership. Our friendship is far stronger than a few comments that may be made by a few people.
Prime Minister Modi in Japan said that, China and India have to come together for a new global economic order. Can we trust China?
Well, I think we've always had good relations over many years with China. Prime Minister Modi has visited China earlier. President Xi Jinping has come to India. Unfortunately, the incidents post Galwan had brought a little bit of ice to the relationship and created a hiatus. Now that we have been largely able to resolve the issues of disagreement with China, I think it was very natural that we should also reset our ties, take them to the pre-Galwan level. And I think attending an SCO summit where many countries were all getting together had a multilateral dimension also, and a dimension of a whole grouping, because SCO is a pretty large group, just like many other groups in the world. NATO is a very large group, the OECD countries is a large group, SCO is a large group. And Prime Minister Modi attending the SCO there has signaled that we have a thaw in the to get back in the frost, get back into better relationship.
Well, that's the big newsmaker. Commerce Minister Piyush Goyal on the India-US relationship, on India-US and China, as well as the China reset and, of course, the GST impact. We will be bringing you much more of that right through the night here on CNBC-TV18. Up next on India Business Hour, we continue with our GST coverage. There is good news for vegans and those interested in plant-based milk. We'll tell you why when we return.
Welcome back. You are watching India Business Hour. GST on medical equipment such as diagnostic kits, blood glucose monitors and surgical devices has been reduced from 12% to 5%. Meanwhile, GST on 33 life-saving drugs used in the treatment of critical illnesses such as cancer has been cut to zero. Here's what Poly Medicure and Metropolis said about the GST reforms.
This will enable more people to have access to quality healthcare, and the significant incentive that has been given to insurance is clearly a huge differentiator. Moving to nil GST on life and health will enable more people to buy insurance products and for the insurance company to have a larger risk pool.
See, this is a landmark reform that the government has done, and frankly, at Nat Health and obviously from all of us, we've been pleading with the government for a long time, saying because we don't charge GST to the consumer, we have all these input costs with no actual offset. So this actually gives an opportunity now to to be able to have a lower GST input cost. Because medtech has come down and reagents and chemicals, the GST has come down from 18 to 5. That will certainly expand access for the industry. It will create a fairer competition playing field between the unorganized and the organized.
I think, we have three different structures, 5%, 12% and 18%. Everything gets collapsed to 5%. So I think this will spur demand, especially for essential healthcare products, so especially used in, home care, area like thermometers and glucometers and all that. And for hospitals, the cost for medical devices will come down from, let's say, because of reduction in GST. And as they are nil rated, so they don't get any benefit for higher GST rates. So as the GST comes down, I think the cost of treatments for patients will also come down. So it's very, very positive for the industry.
The consumer durable sector has received a massive boost as well. Products like televisions, air conditioners and refrigerators have moved into the 18% category. B. Thiagarajan of Blue Star is gung-ho about a great festive season.
I anticipate that from September 22nd onwards, till the new year, it should be a great season ahead for multiple reasons. Significant reduction of around 10%. It is anywhere between 2,500 to 3,500 rupees, depending on the model one wants to buy. And never in the history there had been such an increase through one announcement. There is a energy label change that is coming up on 1st January 2026. Therefore, there will be a rush to purchase the products before the prices go up.
Let's take a look now at some popular items that will be impacted due to the GST rejig. Entry to sporting events like the Indian Premier League will get costlier. IPL tickets will attract a GST rate of 40% versus 28%. For example, if a ticket with a base price of 2,000 had cost you around 2,560 rupees earlier, it will now cost you around 2,800 rupees. Some good news for vegans as well. Plant-based soy milk, which earlier attracted a rate of 18% and 12%, have been brought under the 5% tax slab. Although fruit juices and aerated drinks like diet soda have been included in the 40% tax bracket versus 28% earlier. The prices don't get impacted because of the 12 to 15% cess levied earlier. And let's move on. Prime Minister Modi said that his government is concerned about the youth's future and therefore did not buckle under any pressure when it came to banning online money games. He was addressing an event honouring the teachers on the eve of Teachers' Day. The Prime Minister said every teacher in the country must be aware of the dangers associated with online gaming. He warned that it can be as harmful and addictive as gambling.
आपने अभी देखा होगा कि अभी पार्लियामेंट का जब सत्र चल रहा था तो हमने ऑनलाइन गेमिंग से जुड़ा एक कानून बनाया है। अब ये सब शिक्षकों को पता होना चाहिए। गेमिंग एंड गैम्बलिंग, दुर्भाग्य ऐसा है कि कहते तो गेमिंग है लेकिन हो जाता है जुआ। और इसलिए सरकार ने, और बहुत बड़ा निर्णय है ये, बड़ी बड़ी ताकतें वो कभी नहीं चाहती थी कि ऐसा कानून आए और देश में गैम्बलिंग पर प्रतिबंध आ जाए। लेकिन आज एक ऐसी सरकार है जिसमें पॉलिटिकल विल है और जिसके दिल में देश के उज्जवल भविष्य की चिंता है।
With that, it's a wrap on this edition of India Business Hour. Thank you for watching. News continues right here on CNBC-TV18.